All right, let's dive into this essay. The essence of personhood.
Ah.
It's really fascinating, What does it actually mean to be a person?
Yeah, I mean, it goes way beyond just like breathing and having a heartbeat, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So the essay starts with like the biological stuff.
Yeah.
Historically that's kind of been our go-to,
Yeah,
right?
the classic approach, like genes, development, physical stuff. But then the essay throws in these like curve balls. Like, what about people in a vegetative state? They've got the human DNA, but are they really persons? I mean, if they're not conscious, if they can't like interact.
Yeah, that's a tough one. It really makes you think, huh?
For sure. And then it gets even more complex, right? Because you got to factor in the environment. The essay talks about epigenetics. So, like, even if you have identical twins, right?
Oh, okay, yeah.
If one grows up, in a loving home and the other one faces like hardship and neglect,
Right.
their genes might be the same, but they could end up totally different.
Yeah, so it's like nature and nurture, but they're all tangled up together. This is
Uh-huh.
getting deep.
Oh, yeah. And then we move beyond just the biological, the body, and we get into the mind. Consciousness, self-awareness, and the ability to reason. Like John Locke, the philosopher, he was all about that stuff as like the core of personhood.
So then, like, what about AI? I mean, if we're talking about, those cognitive abilities, could AI ever be considered a person? Especially with all the crazy advancements they're making. It's kind of a sci-fi question, but
Totally. And the essay actually goes there. It talks about the possibility of like non-biological consciousness. Could a really advanced AI, one that learns and maybe even shows self-awareness, could that be a person? It's wild to think about.
right. Okay, but even if we, like, put AI aside for a second,
Yeah.
the essay makes it clear that personhood, it's not just some, like, philosophical idea. It affects, like, real life, especially when you think about society and the law.
Absolutely. I mean, societies don't just observe who's a person, right? They decide who gets to be called a person. And usually there's like legal stuff backing that up. And that impacts people's rights, their responsibilities, everything.
So it's not just, like, a label. It has real consequences.
Huge consequences. And you know what the essay uses as an example? Corporations.
Wait, what?
Yeah, corporations, they're often given legal personhood. So they can do things like sign contracts, own property, even get sued.
That's crazy. So we're talking about something that isn't even alive, the
Yeah.
biological sense, and we're calling it a person.
Exactly. It shows you how, like, fluid the concept of personhood really is. It all depends on
This
context.
is blowing my mind.
Right. And that's one of the big takeaways from the essay. We need to stop thinking about personhood in such, like, a limited way. It's not just about biology or the mind or what society says. It's all of those things together. We need a bigger picture.
I'm starting to see that, yeah. But how do we, like,
Yeah.
actually do that? How do we create that bigger picture?
Well, that's a really good question, and it's something we're going to keep exploring. The essay doesn't just give us, like, a simple answer. It's more about giving us a new way to think about it, a more complex way, a framework for how to approach these questions.
Okay, I'm definitely ready to keep exploring. This is getting really interesting.
So we're back diving rapper into this whole personhood thing. And trust me, it gets even more mind-bending from here.
I'm ready for it. Last time we were talking about how the essay wants us to see personhood more holistically, not just biology, not just the mind, but like the whole picture, including society and how we interact with each other.
Exactly. And when you start looking at it that way, it makes you think, like, could there be persons that aren't even human?
Whoa, you're talking AI, right? That's the part that always gets me thinking. Like, what if we create AI that's so smart, so self-aware, that it starts to, I don't know, act like a person?
Right. And the essay doesn't shy away from that. It actually says, hey, let's consider the possibility of non-biological persons. Like, imagine an AI that can learn, maybe even feel emotions, and actually contribute to society.
Oh, it's almost like we're opening up this whole new world, right?
Yeah.
But it's also kind of scary. Like, if a machine becomes a person, what does that mean for us? What rights would they have? Do we have to protect them?
Those are the big questions, aren't they? And the essay makes us confront them head on. It says, look, our understanding of personhood has always been changing. We used to exclude all sorts of people, women, minorities. But over time, we've broadened our definition, and now maybe we're on the verge of another huge shift.
It makes you realize that this whole conversation, it's not just theoretical, right?
No.
It can actually change our life, our society, everything.
Totally. This essay isn't giving us all the answers. It's more like a guide, a way to navigate this new territory. It's asking us to question our assumptions, to really think about what it means to be a person.
I like that it doesn't just tell us what to think. It's like It invites us to join the conversation.
Exactly. It's like it's saying, hey, this is a big deal and we need to figure it out together. It's not up to some expert to decide. We all have a role to play in shaping the future of personhood.
Okay, so we've talked about AI, but there's another part of the essay that I found really interesting. It talks about how personhood isn't just something you're born with. It's also about how other people see you and treat you.
Oh, yeah, the relational aspect. The essay talks about philosophers like Charles Taylor and Axel Honneth. They say that recognition from others is crucial for developing as a person. Like if you never feel seen or acknowledged,
Yeah, like you don't matter.
right, it can really mess with your sense of self. But when people show you care and respect, and they actually see you for who you are,
It makes a huge difference.
it does. It helps you grow, to feel like a whole person.
It makes me think about how important it is to treat everyone with dignity, to create a world where everyone feels valued and respected.
Absolutely. And if we take this idea of relational personhood seriously, it has huge ethical implications, especially when we start thinking about AI and other non-human entities. Like, if they need recognition to flourish, do we have a responsibility to give it to them?
This is getting deep. So it's not just about figuring out who qualifies as a person, it's also about how we treat them.
Exactly. This essay, it's not just about redefining personhood, it's also about challenging us to be better, to be more inclusive, to create a more just world for all kinds of beings.
I'm starting to see how all these pieces fit together. It's not just about biology or consciousness or society. It's about all of those things and how they interact to shape who we are and who we might become.
Exactly. It's complex, it's challenging, but it's also incredibly important. And this is just the beginning of our exploration.
All right, welcome back for the final part of our deep dive. I feel like we've been through a lot. Genes, consciousness, corporations as people. It's a wild ride.
Yeah, no kidding. But this last part, this is where we kind of put it all together, right? And the essay really pushes us to think about the bigger picture, the ethics of it all.
Yeah, okay. So before we get to the really big questions, let's go back to that idea of personhood being relational. Remember we were talking about that last time, how it's not just about what's going on inside you, but also how other people treat you, recognize you.
Right. And those philosophers we mentioned, Taylor and Honneth, they'd say that if you're not recognized by others, it actually limits your ability to become a full person.
There's you need that validation from other people to really, truly be a person.
Okay, so then what about AI? I mean, if we create an AI that's super smart, feels emotions, all that, but we as humans don't recognize it as a person, does that mean we're holding it back somehow?
Whoa, that is a really good question. I mean, that's the kind of ethical dilemma we might be facing pretty soon. It's tough, right? We're so used to thinking of humans as the only real persons. Yeah, it's built into us.
Yeah.
But what if we're wrong? What if there are other kinds of persons out there, or soon will be?
Exactly. So then how do we decide? What are the criteria for personhood? Is it rationality, consciousness, empathy? And how do we even measure that in something that's not human?
Okay, so the essay doesn't give us a clear answer.
All right, wait.
Like a checklist.
Yeah.
So what do we do? How do we approach this in the real world?
Well, I think one thing we got to ask is, can this being, whatever it is, form real relationships? Not just with its own kind, but maybe with us too. Can it connect with others, show empathy, understand things on a deeper level?
So it's not just about smarts, it's about connection. Being able to build bonds, to communicate, to share experiences.
Right. And then another big question is, how does this being affect the community, the society? Does it contribute in a positive way? Does it respect others? I mean, these are questions we ask about people all the time.
So we're basically trying to figure out if this being, whether it's AI or something else entirely, can live alongside us, be part of our world in a way that makes sense.
Exactly. We might need a whole new set of rules, a new way of thinking about ethics to deal with all this.
That's a lot to take in.
It is. But I think the most important thing is to be open-minded, to approach this with curiosity and respect, even if it's scary or confusing.
Yeah, I get that. It's we're at this really unique point in history where the definition of person might be changing right before our eyes. And we get to be part of that conversation, which is pretty amazing.
Totally. And that's what this essay is really about, I think. It's not giving us all the answers, but it's giving us the tools to ask the right questions.
So listeners, what do you think? What resonated with you in this deep dive? What surprised you? What new questions are you thinking about? Because honestly, we're just scratching the surface here. This is a conversation that's going to keep going, and we hope you'll keep exploring it with us. Thanks for listening.